Yinka Shonibare Foundation, what can I say? It is the foundation that is been put together by amazing Yinka Shonibare, who most of you will probably know, who's been working extensively, really since the late 1990s. Here is a few of his works, just to remind a few of you who are perhaps not familiar with his work. So he's a British Nigerian artist based in London. He was born in Lagos, Nigeria. And his most his most prominent early works was the Diary of the Victorian Dandy, which you can see an image here. And these were large scale photographic installations, if you like, that were installed across the London Underground. And of course, this was before the Art for the Underground programme. And it was quite something to sort of be confronted with this in the underground space where art, you're not familiar with seeing it as art. We are now more familiar with that. It was quite a stunning and an amazing installation. I remember it well from my time as a student. He's also known for his sculptural installations, his use of 20th century reinterpreting old masters, particularly 17th and 18th century. He was nominated for the Turner Prize, and he also was one of the first artists to exhibit on the fourth plinth, so the famous sort of Nelson's ship in the bottle, which is now at Greenwich in the National Maritime Museum. Onto his British Library collections, and he's now done Africa Library and American Library, and of course his sort of playful reinterpretation, if you like, of classical Greek sculptures. One of his more recent ones is, of course, the Justice for All, which he did in 2019, but now seems so pertinent. And I think that kind of a lot of his work feels more pertinent as time goes on. It's incredibly layered, and he's so modest about his work. And so well, I just do it, I make it, and it's up for your interpretation. It's just so incredible. And of course, the British Library is now at in the Tate collection, and is a wonderfully interactive piece because it's about adding, the community can add their stories on the computers and the digital. So it's a growing piece. It's a live art installation that just continues to develop. So his foundation. So the Yinka Shonibare Foundation is really in its infancy. So we're very early to the work that probably a lot of you have been involved with for a long time and are well established. So we're very young. We started in May 2019. Although Yinka has conceived of this for over 10 years, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that. So I joined at the beginning of 2020, just in time for one of the, what a year we've all had in 2020, and what a year we're probably going to have again. So we're all having to be very flexible with that. So Yinka Shonibare Foundation established in 2019, and at the same time, he established Guest Artist Space in Nigeria, set it up as a non-for-profit in Nigeria. And of course, he had Guest Projects, which was already established in London, and of which Guest Artist Space in Nigeria is modelled. And Yinka Shonibare Foundation looks after both of those sort of strands of projects and builds on them. So Yinka's vision is very, very simple and straightforward. It is about fostering cultural exchange. It is about dialogue. It's about research, and it's building infrastructure from the ground up. And I think that's originally, sort of about 15 years ago, he was thinking, okay, what about building a museum in Lagos? And I think he really came to the conclusion quite quickly that actually there was no infrastructure there. There wasn't sort of the systems of education and training. There wasn't the rigor there on the coming from the ground up. And he actually felt that it would be more beneficial to actually do something that was much more grassroots. And hence this idea of a project space and a residency space in Nigeria. So this is what the building will look like. So this is a fantastic visualization, which of course you'll never actually see it from the street like this, which is, but it is going to be this amazing concrete building. It's very environmentally aware. It's got incredible, it's won a world, it was nominated for World Architecture Award, and I think it got a silver award for a residential space. On the ground floor is a multifunctional studio, gallery space, workshop space, and the whole sort of window screens open up. There won't be cars there. That's actually a beautiful courtyard that we will able to sort of have performances in, and exhibitions and sculptural spaces. There'll be no cars there. And then on the first floor are spaces for 3 residences. So they're double bedrooms, ensuite. There's a shared kitchen, a lounge, which can also is all open plan and can open up and double up again as another gallery space. And then on the top floor is Yinka's studio and private space. So very much similar to a space in London. The artists and curators are being asked to come and inhabit the same space that he will be living and working in. And it's an incredibly accessible building. So here you can see that the whole building is accessible by a ramp that wraps itself around the building. And this screen is based on one of Yinka's artworks. And again, within the ramp space are going to be these incredible library vitrines. So we're trying to also build a collection of from exhibitions and history of art and that sort of thing, that again is part of an accessible and growing and building and living archive for the wider sort of arts and cultural community in Lagos. But we also have a second space. So we've got 2 buildings going up, and both these buildings will be finished, fingers crossed, with all the delays we've had, but they should be finished in about March, April this year. We're on the top floor of the Lagos building, and we're building the eco farms, the earth buildings on the farm. So we have a farm about 2.5 hours outside of Lagos, and Yinka has built a 5-kilometer road because there was no road to it. He's built these polytunnels and the 2 first farm buildings for the farm workers, and he's been planting, doing a plantation. So they've now had 2 years worth of food produce. It is now self-sustaining farm. It's an eco and organic farm. And they grow all sorts of vegetables that they take to market. And they now are supporting 11 farm workers from the local villages in this space. Now the plans are, and we are now currently making the bricks from the earth on the farm for these buildings. So they're very quick builds. They're single floor, but they've got this lovely sort of raised space. And again, we've got this ramp that will take you up to the roof of the building, which will give these amazing views over the landscape. So we've got a 3-bedroom space for artists and researchers, but also we're going to be reaching out to agricultural researchers, and artists who are very much concerned with the land and perhaps food ecology and food sustainability. Then along from the building would then be this incredible studio space, double studio space with a beautiful sort of walled garden or earth walled garden around it on the plantation. But we're also then planning, our master plan is to then support craft makers from local villages, so Women's Craft Centre. And again, inviting artists and designers to come and work with the craftspeople to develop work, particularly in terms of pottery and dyed textiles. So it really came out from the guest project space in Hackney, and this is where it all started and where it still happens. But this is guest projects is something that Yinka has run for over 12 years now, and has always been a collaborative space for performance, for painters, for sculptors, for writers, for installation artists, as a theatre space. And it is a really dynamic and interesting place. But of course, with the pandemic, we had to quite quickly flip last year. So we were able to apply for some funding to flip the way that we deliver residencies. And one of the first residencies we ran was with a really interesting craft collective called Decorating Dissidents. And they collaborated with artists Jade Montserrat, Hannah Skinner, Sarah Kelly, and Bettina Fung. And for a month, they took over all of our social media. They took over the website. We gave them access to Zoom. We gave them Photoshop editing suites. We gave them whatever they needed in terms of hardware as well, in terms of cameras and lights, and it was an incredible month of Dada experimentation and workshops and people engaged, and young people's workshops working with textile designers. It was absolutely fantastic. And then the next month we hosted London Alternative Photography Collective, and they had proposed this idea of a sustainable darkroom. And again, they had over 17 different artists experimenting with everything, as you can see, from chickpea water developer for photographic prints, working with fungus to help develop. So the green one in the corner is actually a fungus developer solution, through to solar prints and how to set up sustainable ways to create and still produce work, which of course within this context, and bearing in mind these are artists who had proposed these projects to us, back at the end of 2019. So it kind of was incredible that we should be sort of working together in this sort of way. And again, it was an incredible project. And it then got even better. So then in the August residency, we had these amazing two young curators, Ryan Benedino and Linda Rocco, who had proposed working with migrant communities in particularly in London. And this idea of the barriers of language to creativity. And over each week was a different focus, language focus. So there was a Filipino week, Taiwanese, Yoruba, and Berber languages. And they invited 3 artists from each of those language groups to develop work. And some of them were live film screenings, some of them were recorded, some of them were live workshops. And then at the end of each week, they had this amazing cooking session. Where they went, some of them went to the market with some of them to buy the ingredients, and we had the recipes listed up, and then they cooked with us, and it was just, again, and that was incredible, absolutely incredible exposure to all sort of these artists working all across the world. So, and of course, within our physical space, we'd have never been able to have done this. So it was absolutely beautiful. So as pilot projects, these are incredible, and we want to sort of keep developing them. And then our last one was working with two artists from Lagos and a curator from London. And this was quite something, and has gone on to be adopted by Artex Lagos. And they used it as part of the healing process to working with other Nigerian artists who'd been affected by the sort of turmoil that they had in the autumn. And this idea of this sort of graveyard of ideas, and this what does failure mean? And actually, of course, what we always conceived the project spaces as being were places for experimentation, opportunities to fail and learn, because it's often through our failures that we learn the most, rather than being too focused on any end product or any final ideas. So this really sort of talked to us on a lot of levels, and we were really keen to support this. And it's, again, it was just a quite wonderful project. And we're now, our latest iteration is a film festival that we've got going on, and we're doing this sort of 3x3 film festival where we've invited 3 artists who mostly sort of work with film, to show some work, some particular short work, and then we've got a round table discussion with them after the screening. And they will then recommend another young artist to go for the next festival in 3 months' time, and we'll have another week-long film festival. So we've had to sort of change, and we're still hoping that we can open the residences in Lagos at the end of this year. So fingers crossed. We've got curators from Germany, Africa and America coming for the first residencies. We're planning sort of now for the first year and a half. So things are exciting, and we're actively talking to a number of partners to collaborate with, because what we won't do is do an open call. We'll work with partners to sort of curate a call for artists or researchers. But it is exciting.